oh, this makes sense, or I make sense, right? And then maybe eventually to, I can change this. Maybe I don't need this exact strategy. My inner child just started screaming, like all these things from the past that were unresolved. And this work feels incredibly intimate.
Today, I have a wonderful and very meaningful guest in this episode, in the first episode that I'll record in English, actually, and the first solo episode in English. And it's somebody who has been helping me since I would say one of the lowest points of my life so far, who has been accompanying me and helping me to see things clearer and to pretty much come home to myself in a in a more grounded and sustainable way. Still a work in progress, but I'm very happy to have my wonderful therapist, Karena, here. Hello, Karena.
Hi, Maria. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm really happy and grateful that you are my first guest actually in English, and it's very appropriate because otherwise, I think if it wouldn't be for you, I wouldn't even record this. So it's wonderful to have you here.
Well, that's wonderful.
Um, yeah, before I fully introduce you, I would say if you could introduce yourself, not telling your title, but more describing what you do and a feeling. How does it feel what you're doing? And what is your mission? What would you say?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so often we introduce ourselves with a title, so it's actually really interesting to think about what it feels like to do what I do. Um, Honestly, it feels so I do attachment work, and this work feels incredibly intimate. Um, People are inviting you to the most vulnerable parts of themselves and their lives. Um, they share fears that they may not share with even with their friends. They share shame that maybe they've been hiding from for years. So it's a very uh, intimate experience in that way, and to be trusted with that, to be with someone else in that space, it creates a very tender experience for me. Um, so um, that is definitely how it feels. It also feels quite confronting sometimes, and
For you?
yes,
Or
I'll explain. Yeah, um, because when we work with human relationships, there is a lot of grief that we talk about. There's a lot of anxieties, jealousy, fears that we kind of work with together. And none of us really graduate from that, right? Like none of us are immune to feeling that. So sometimes in sessions, um, some of that gets mirrored back to me and mirrors back to me something from my own life or my own experiences, which is which is beautiful, and it does feel, a little bit confronting at times.
yeah.
Yeah, um, so that's definitely another, layer to it. Um, I would also say that more than anything, it feels very hopeful, this work. It feels it feels like such a privilege to be able to witness people um, discover or go from oh, what's wrong with me? Why am I like this? To oh, this makes sense, or I make sense, right? And then maybe eventually to, I can change this. Maybe I don't need this exact strategy anymore. Um, so it's very hopeful, very, very inspiring, very empowering to me to be able to witness that as well.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
that's beautiful. And I think I do think what a lot of people sometimes need to hear, or what I'm usually very grateful for that there are obviously not just great therapists, but also sometimes either you don't have the resources or the own, um, like your own threshold, if that's the right word, is just too high to start
Mm.
doing it. But then you hear it in a podcast or in a book, you read that change is possible. I mean, I think you do need to have this thought, if anything, to even start doing something, because
Yeah,
otherwise you're just lost in that spiral. So that's beautiful to hear from you.
100%. Yeah.
Um, and if you would need to, like, can you say that you have a mission here? Like, is this your mission
Mhm.
to bring people hope, or would you say you have one? If so, what is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so my mission, I wouldn't say it's creating these perfectly secure relationships or secure people because that doesn't exist, right? Um, But when I think about my mission, I think it's to help people suffer less in
Mhm.
relationships. There's so many ways, different ways in which we suffer daily in our relationships. So whether it's, some couples struggle a lot with conflict, some people struggle with jealousy or having these deep-seated fears that I will be abandoned, that I'm not good enough, um, that I'm alone. And so my mission is really helping find them, to help them find a bit more compassion
Mhm.
for those moments, find a bit more understanding, and through that, um, build more internal security, uh, come home to themselves, like you said before,
Mhm.
and eventually build more secure relationships.
Mhm.
But I think it starts for me, the kind of the core of my mission would be to help people suffer less in relationships, um, because I know it personally, the
Mhm.
kind of suffering that can happen in relationships, and I want to help to help
Yeah,
people experience less of that, right?
yeah,
Um,
it's beautiful. Is
mm,
is this then how you started this work? Is this what you experienced for yourself that you needed help, or can
mhm,
you tell me a little bit about your background? Like, why did you start doing this work then?
sure. Um, so I think as similarly to many other practitioners and therapists and in the healing space, yes, I got into it because of my own healing journey. I don't share this actually very often, but when I was younger, I struggled a lot emotionally. I
Mm,
was for a long time, I struggled with an eating disorder, and
mm,
then when I was in high school, um, it's kind of I added some alcohol on top of that, so it was
mm,
like eating issues and alcohol abuse, and it just as a teenager, I really struggled a lot.
mm,
Um, so as I begun my healing journey, uh, I became interested in this work more, like what helps us, how can we change? Um, and it took a long time. I tried many different types of therapy, um, and then I don't exactly remember when, but at one point, just things started clicking a little bit more and shifting, and I started viewing some of the behaviors that I had through that more compassionate lens of what is this behavior doing for me? Like, what is it protecting me from? Or what is the function of this behavior? And so, as I started understanding that more deeply, I was able to start replacing some of those behaviors with more with healthier choices. And I think that's how I got into that's really what prompted me to study psychology and to choose that at university as my major. So
Mm. Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. It's yeah, vulnerable part, but I think it's so relatable. Maybe not even
mhm,
in this extent. I mean, I'm sorry you had to go through this.
mm,
Um, but what I always feel when I talk to people, and yeah, of course, maybe as a client of a therapist, I don't really know what they go through, but the feeling often is I sense if somebody has been through shit and not just been through
yeah.
it, but actually made a change. I think this is one
Mm,
of the most inspiring moments for like for somebody who suffers themselves, obviously, that you
mhm,
know somebody or you sense that they don't just understand you, but they can actually even guide you out of it because maybe they even went through their own story. And as you say, I think
right.
this is so beautiful,
Mhm,
especially yeah in those years when it's you're very receptive to a lot of things and
yeah,
to be
absolutely.
able to change that and to notice it. I
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many points that I would like to go to, but I think one of the points that stands out the most for me, what you're saying, is to be able to see yourself through a lens of compassion.
Hmm.
Isn't that huge?
Yeah. Yeah,
Because I mean,
absolutely.
yeah, I guess it's not. I mean, you know better than me, but I would say from what I know, the behavior is
Mhm,
just a symptom of the thoughts you have about yourself and all the
mhm,
conditioning and all the things that came to you, maybe combined with trauma or not. Um, yeah, that this, yeah, this is just, I think it's just beautiful to see that there's change possible when you notice, oh my God, the voice I had in my head all the time is suddenly like either not so loud anymore or it's just a completely different voice. It's Karina's voice in my
yeah.
head now.
Good. Yeah. 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 It's really quite something to witness that in yourself. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I think, that inspires many people to pursue this kind of work when you feel the power of that shift, that evolution within yourself. You want to help others feel the same thing, right? Like go through that same process. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So
And
it
just
was
to
not
add
just,
more,
go ahead.
oh, sorry. I was just going to add that more specifically, I got into attachment work because of my relationship with
Mhm.
my now husband. So um, that's something that really inspired me to specialize in attachment work specifically. Because, and I'll just quickly mention, I actually thought that I was very emotionally independent, and I thought that I was actually more avoidant. And in
Mhm.
previous relationships, I tended to be more avoidant or have more avoidant patterns. But about a year and a half into our relationship with my now husband, Jonathan, something shifted. Things became more serious, and then all these old wounds opened up, and
Bullshit came
let's,
out.
let's say, my inner child just started screaming, like all these
Mm.
things from the past that were unresolved. And I noticed like a lot of anxious behaviors coming up that I really like had no idea I had living in me. Um, and so from there, I really became maybe not obsessed, but very interested in attachment work, specifically all things relationships, and I just dove right in, and that's kind of how I ended up here.
Mhm. Well, that's
Yeah.
super interesting because your website, which I will share later,
Mhm.
says from anxious to secure.
That's right.
um, and potentially a lot of people heard that, you know what it is, but maybe if you have one sentence for each, how would you describe what is anxious attachment and avoidant attachment?
Mhm.
And are there maybe only those two
Mhm.
perspectives on it?
Right, right. So, I like always starting this explanation by telling people that attachment exists on a spectrum, right? So it's
Mm.
not there's just one type of anxious attachment. It's really a spectrum that we have people who are a little bit more anxious, less anxious, and it varies depending on so many different factors, depending on the kind of partner you're with, depending on um, things that are happening in your life at different stages. There are many things that are at play. But anxious attachment is more, how would I explain it? It's we are more comfortable being and processing emotions with another person. Our nervous
Mm.
systems are feel safer when we are in close proximity
Mhm.
to our partners. When so just to give some examples, like when we have conflict, an anxious person will tend to want to resolve it immediately, or some people will are they maybe will not try to resolve it right away, but they will kind of um, uh,
Mm.
go down like a rabbit hole, be really
Overemphasize.
ruminating, yeah, overthinking,
I never did
ruminating.
that.
Yeah, I know. We never had
I'm good.
those. No. Yeah, and and they kind of like the state of the relationship becomes their everything in that moment, right? Like I can't feel safe until we're good. The avoidant partner, um, they feel typically when there's conflict, they need their space. They need to. It overwhelms their nervous systems. They need space to kind of like detach, not be physically close to the other person oftentimes, and just kind of do some processing on their own. They feel safer, maybe not not being in a relationship, but having that option of having the space, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Being able to really remove themselves from the situation and ground into themselves without any external stimulation, without hearing, from the other partner, just being like in their own zone.
Mm.
Um, so that's what happens in conflict typically. I mean, there are many different ways in which anxious and avoidant partners present. So there's not one kind of like list of behaviors,
One.
but
Okay.
yeah,
Hmm.
but we oftentimes anxious partners are the partners who feel that they are more needy, more sensitive. They constantly want to seek reassurance from their partners. They want to um, they want they want or need to be affirmed by their partners in some kind of way. So they need more of that external, validation input from the partner.
Hmm.
Avoidant partners, on the other hand, are more independent in that way. They they actually their fear is of being of their freedom being taken away when in a relationship, right? So they might not be as emotionally um, connected to themselves. They might not be um, as open about their experiences and what's going on internally. They really value their independence, like I said, their space, not just in conflict, but in general. And like the overarching fear that they tend to have is, like my freedom or my peace for some people. They say I just want my peace is
Hmm.
being encroached on, is being taken away in some way.
Hmm.
And 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 that's why like it creates this sometimes highly volatile dynamic, because we seemingly want different or conflicting things, right? Like the anxious and
Mhm.
the avoidant. And we also have the third type, disorganized, which is really a combination of both, but it also it's the expression of different behaviors is much more extreme. So
Mhm.
it's a much more extreme sense of or fear of abandonment, much more extreme jealousy, but then it contrasts with a very extreme um uh how do I maybe the best way to explain it is it's this like conflicting sense of come close to me, but it also don't go away. It's like
Mhm.
pull and
Mhm.
push, but it's happening
Mhm.
in in internally in one person. It's quite difficult to
Mhm.
live with, and
Mhm.
we see it more often with people who had experienced severe trauma in childhood.
Mhm.
So it's not so I would say it's not the predominant attachment style in society. It's probably the least common one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Would you say, I mean, well, one thing I want to add here is what
Mhm.
I've been learning from you, and I think this is beautiful. One thing is to define your whatever attachment style if you want to, but
Mhm.
what I've been finding very, very helpful and hopeful is to like these behaviors are again a symptom of something maybe that happened to you, and like if you can try, they are guiding you towards something that you probably need to give yourself more, if that's how I could phrase it. I don't know if you still hear me.
No, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yeah. I said, I think what I've been learning with you is that those behaviors, they are a symptom of something. There is a reason why you behave this way. I just want to emphasize again this point of having self-compassion. Because
Mhm.
sometimes, at least for me, before I started working with you, it's like I hear those things and then I'm like, oh damn, well, I'm this person. So what now?
Right.
Like now I just have to suppress it, or it's like I doomed to not be, good because I have a feeling that, avoidant attachment style is still something that's more um maybe respected in society, if that makes any sense.
Mhm. Of course. Yeah.
Um so being maybe on the other side of the spectrum or having those tendencies feels sometimes quite, I don't know, like judgmental, even if it's just said out there. But what you've
Mhm.
been, working with me with, or I assume all the other therapists who are good ones do that, is like having an
Mhm.
understanding for you where you come from. Because honestly, like if people would have gone through what other people go through, be it trauma or with a big T or a small T, everyone would have those behaviors. Like if you would see a kid being treated a certain way, I think everyone would have compassion. And then with an adult, obviously, and there's good reason for that, but we just expect them to just deal with it. But then if you never had the chance to process it, it's I don't know, I would just say have compassion with yourself and maybe try to find somebody who can support you with that, not as an excuse, to behave, maybe misbehave, quote unquote, but just to have an understanding with it. I don't know. I think it's important.
Mhm. Yeah. Absolutely.
Um,
Mm. Yeah. Like you're saying, finding that those bits of compassion is so important because it creates a foundation from which we can um, start making the changes, like that foundation of safety. If I'm not fundamentally broken and and I can have compassion for those parts of myself, then it becomes safer for those parts to actually transform because they're not being rejected, they're not being labeled as just forever wrong. Uh,
mhm,
but when we have that, I mean, we can compare working with parts of ourselves to just working with people, right? If we tell someone you're just broken, there's something deeply wrong with you, will that person be inclined to change? I don't,
Mm.
not usually, not typically, right? But
Mm.
when we can extend compassion towards them, when we can really connect with them on that level, um, say, I see you, I know where you came from, I know why you're behaving this way, let me show you a different way, then that
Mhm.
person opens up, right? They feel safe, they feel seen, they feel like it's not, there's not like this inherent flaw in them that
Mm.
they're being defined by. And it's the same exact thing with our own parts, with, whether it's intense jealousy that we have, or whether it's anger, or like hopelessness, whatever it is. Like when we are able to show those parts of ourselves that we are here, we understand them, we don't we are not just rejecting them and burying them and suppressing them, that's when like that foundational level of safety is we start to build it, and from there we
Mm.
can start making changes gradually. So
Mm.
absolutely, I agree with what you're saying.
Mm, that's very helpful also.
Mhm.
Would you still say, maybe you wouldn't say that, but that anxious and avoidant people, almost everybody, and maybe I cannot label them as people, but let's say people have those tendencies. Would you say that all of them should get a coach or a therapist or support? Both sides,
I
because you're specialized on anxious attachment, no?
Mhm. Yes, and yeah, actually, funny enough, traditionally I've worked with mainly with anxiously attached, or women who identified themselves as anxiously attached. But in the last few years, I've been working with avoidant partners as well, and with a lot more men, both anxious and avoidant men. So there are shifts, I think, in our society where avoidant partners are becoming open to doing this type of work, which is very needed.
Mhm.
Where men also are I think increasingly seeking out therapy and help, and it's wonderful to witness. So yes, absolutely, I think both sides should absolutely be working um, with someone, the practitioner, therapist, to help them overcome these patterns, because it affects the relationships that we have, affect so much of other areas of our lives, and there's this ripple effect on our
Mhm.
lives.
Mhm.
um and I think it's worth it personally, so
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's interesting that more people reach out to you on the other side. At
mm,
which points usually do they contact you? Like, is it all over the places? Any types of, what life situations, in which life situations are the people who reach out to you?
yeah. um So it varies. It's, for some people, it's really when they hit that, like, quote unquote rock bottom, right? Like something really big is happening in their relationship, where the couple is discussing a divorce, or they're kind of like discussing a separation, they're getting to that point. So because I work with couples as well, so they
Mm.
get to that point, and it's like, well, yeah, maybe we need someone to help us before we've just make this final. um but it's I what I see in younger people is that they reach out sooner, and I think it's because there's this, I mean, sooner than reaching this rock bottom point. They reach out when they just notice, that they're struggling in some
Mhm.
way, but it's not as extreme. And I think it's due to just this general shift in society and how we perceive therapy, and kind of, destigmatizing therapy and mental health, and not getting help actually helps you is not a sign that something is wrong with
Woo!
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in younger people, in the younger clients, I see this shift where
Mhm.
they reach out when, just some things are difficult, but they're not crazy bad. It's just
Mhm.
they just want more support. I proactively. That's what
Mhm.
I see. In some older clients, it's still a bit, I would say, skewed towards those more difficult times, right? Like
Mhm. Mhm.
divorce, or maybe also after a birth of a child. Sometimes that transition period is very difficult, so people reach out. Um, yeah, breakups, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I do think it's wonderful that mental health is, as you say, destigmatized or has been
Mm,
since a couple of years now. Yeah.
yeah,
That's beautiful. If it can increase your life quality, so why not? And you have obviously resources.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Mm. I I looked through your website again. I mean, this is how I found you, anyways. And
Mhm.
in your on your website, you do say, "My clients tell me they feel safe, deeply seen, but also lovingly challenged in our sessions," which I can completely agree. um, and I would, it has been life changing for me.
Oh,
Um, and yet I have experienced therapies or therapeutic containers where this definitely was not the case, but I did
mhm,
not have the comparison maybe.
mhm.
And but just something inside of me felt like I don't think this is how you know the session should go, basically.
Right.
What would you say? What could a therapist actually do wrong, or maybe overwhelm a client with? Like, what are signs of somebody like me? Can you still hear me? I'll wait for a second. Mhm.
Damn it.
Let me know. There you are.
Oh, I'm so
Don't
I
worry.
don't.
Um,
Ay,
what
ay.
if a person like like me or other people are looking for somebody and they've maybe trying out some things. Well, one question is what could a therapist do wrong? And then maybe on the other side, what would be signs for yourself that this is probably not the right fit?
Right. Um, okay, so so to answer your question about what therapists could do wrong,
Mm,
I think one of the big things that we need to be mindful of as practitioners is not getting too attached to one type of modality, one type of therapeutic modality, um, because it can be very limiting for our clients. So for many years, the therapeutic focus was on cognitive approaches, right? Like we wanted to focus on analyzing our thoughts, analyzing our belief systems, and it was really the kind of the body-based approaches and somatic work was not part of the therapeutic containers. Now we're seeing, thankfully, a shift in in the trends in therapy, and a lot more emphasis is put on somatic work and body-based approaches and more trauma-informed approaches. So I
mm,
really would, that's one thing that I still keep seeing, when a practitioner is trained in one modality, they will kind of like stick to that and follow that protocol, but it's to the client's detriment because we're complex human beings. We don't just work with our thoughts, we work with our entire system, right? So
mhm,
when we get so locked in into one approach, we miss out on so much that could be actual that could make our work much more effective and much more um, uh, actually that could bring actually much deeper shifts. So
mhm,
that's one thing I would encourage them to keep learning, stay open, even if they're traditionally taught in one modality, to really expand, learn about different ones, continue their education beyond university level, continue with workshops, with trainings, and also just have this mindset of seeing value in both, in different approaches, right? Because I also see this where even some of my colleagues sometimes who say, oh, the cognitive behavioral therapy was bullshit, like we should completely erase it. And that's also not ideal, because we want to be able to see value and wisdom in different approaches, and kind of like pick and choose
Mm,
tools that will be helpful for the particular client. Because
mm,
brings me to the next thing, it's not, healing is not one size fits all, right? So
mm,
what works for
mhm,
one person is not going to work for another. We need to be highly flexible, highly attuned, and really allow ourselves to shift and evolve through this process with the client, right? Like, not staying stuck to this thing that I know so well. Well, maybe if it's not working so well, I should expand and learn more about another approach that might be helpful here.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and and that takes some humility, right? Like, we're not, even though we may have been working with people and studying this for many years, it doesn't mean we know it all. So
Yeah.
so having that approach of like just continuous curiosity and humility and openness, that's important. Um, Another thing that I would say, uh, for practitioners, therapists, is repair, 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 repair with your clients. It's Repair is such an important and, I think, underestimated part of therapy, when we are all bound to make mistakes in therapy and
Mm,
sessions. When
mhm,
we are able to, name it and talk to our client about it and model healthy repair, that is
mhm,
um, that is actually deeply healing in and of itself.
mhm,
Because because the therapeutic relationship, it's not just like a relationship we have, with I don't know, with the mailman, or with whoever. Like, I don't know why that example
yeah.
came to mind, but it's a deeply intimate relationship, and it
Mhm,
has the power to model healthy, secure attachment, right? And
mhm,
part of secure attachment is not never having disagreements, not never having conflict, not never feeling dropped, like we were just talking about before.
yeah.
It's the ability for us to come back to each other, right? To
Mhm,
reconnect, to acknowledge the rupture, and be able to say, like, I did something wrong, or I should have done X, Y, and Z, and I did
mhm,
this instead, and come back from that. That's how we model also for the client's attachment system. We model
mhm,
what security looks like. So that's really important, and understandably, many, young practitioners, many young therapists really are afraid of that, because the ego is still fragile, and it reflects, maybe it reflects something that I'm not qualified enough if I made a
mhm,
mistake. But it's the opposite,
mhm.
right? It's like,
Wow.
if you're
Yeah.
able to, yeah, yeah, if when we're able to make these repairs, it actually strengthens the therapeutic relationship. And so I encourage all r- therapists, all practitioners, to be practicing that. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's incredibly interesting, and I think probably not being heard often at all. I think it's so so wonderful. And actually today, right, I just gave you the feedback that like the many mistakes you make. I'm kidding. Like
Yep.
this once or twice
Mhm,
that you did that, it felt very. I didn't. There was even moments where I felt like I didn't need it, but
mhm,
also parts that I didn't realize I might have needed it, and it felt very inspiring for me to see um, as kind of like a role model for other relationships, as you say,
mhm,
that there is no obviously no shame in that. There is no it's quite the opposite. It's just strengthening the trust and the
mhm.
deep feeling of being seen and taken seriously. And the
Right.
way, I mean, obviously, it's also the way you say it. You didn't make yourself smaller or over apologized or anything like that. You just took full responsibility and shared your view and wanted to mention that. And yeah, it's incredibly interesting. And I remember, when I used to go to university, I always thought one of those the professors, or like the professors that I respected the most,
Mhm,
obviously had a lot of knowledge, yes, but
mhm,
more than that, it was so, especially in the context what I studied, was just an overload of information. It
mhm,
was really healing and encouraging, even to study more, to know when the professor said, "Actually, I don't know this answer, and I don't expect you
mhm,
to know that. I'm going to look it up." Or I'm not an expert on any field. And again, don't overuse this maybe, but the
mhm,
combination of competence and humility is, I think, what makes a great
mhm.
teacher, but also obviously a good therapist. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Humility
Yes.
and
Yeah.
competence. That's a great combo.
And what about the other side? How do I maybe do know that as a potential client that this is not the right fit? Like one
Oh,
time, I mean, I shared that with you, right? Not to bash on this person that I met, but actually was good for me to. I think it's important for other people to know that too. It is not
mhm,
your fault if you're overwhelmed,
mhm.
because I think this
Yeah.
could happen as well as you say. Maybe it's a person who's just not attuned and can't really mirror that to you. But I was in a container for like 3 sessions before I met or found you in person, where I basically just went and only cried and paid for that, but it's okay. But in the end of it, in like the last minute, I was told, well, then yeah, well, just doing a work. I'm like, yeah, but how? I mean, and I would say I'm quite smart. Like I read a lot about this, but I'm here to tell you, like to help me with that. But she said, like, no, yeah, just hold your inner child. Okay. uh, it did not, spoiler, it did not
Yeah,
really help.
yeah, yeah, no kidding. So,
So
yeah.
yeah, what would you say? How can somebody know, well, this is maybe not the right fit?
Mhm. Right, that's a great question. Um, hmm. I would definitely well, first of all, I would advise people to, when you know what kind of topic or what kind of issue you're looking for help with, um, I would advise you to check the person's um, oh, I'm forgetting the
Qualification?
word. Exactly. Check the
Yeah.
person's qualifications to make sure, not to make sure the qualifications, are
Yeah.
impressive, but to make sure that they cover a range of
Mm.
um, topics or
Mhm.
topics or fields or modalities. So
That's
there
good.
are
Good. Mhm.
yeah, there are therapists that are called integrative therapists who don't practice in just one modality. So again, like to what I was sharing before, it's important that whoever you choose to work with is not just trained in one type of approach, because then that person will keep kind of like forcing the work and forcing the interventions to be in that to be under that modality, and it's rarely helpful. So we want to be looking at for practitioners that are more integrative. So that's number one.
Mm.
um, but in terms of when you start actually working with someone, um, and this, it's not always immediate. It can take time, but over time, you want to be looking at how your nervous system is feeling with this person. It's really
Mhm.
important to be like taking some time and reflecting back, not just how I felt, when we were chatting and um, like, I think this person cognitively understands me, but how did my nervous system feel, right? Like, was
Oh,
I
this is so
a
important.
yeah, was I able um to relax, to soften, to feel like this sense of relief rather than, just feeling like I have to be on and like performing for performing healing for my practitioner, right? So looking at that, I think it's really, really important, and it's so often overlooked. And And with that, in therapy, there are moments that are really important, and we sometimes, gaslight ourselves as clients, and we kind of dismiss what we feel is important when it's not acknowledged by the therapist, or it's like kind of
Mhm.
skipped over. We tell ourselves, oh yeah, maybe it wasn't so important. But pay attention to those moments. Like, your therapist is supposed to, it's their job to attune to you and be picking up on those important moments, not dismissing them. And we just talked about this exact thing before we started recording. Um, it's so important for the practitioner to be able to do this, and when they do dismiss something or skip over, that they are able to come back to
Yeah,
it.
this
Yeah.
is so important. I want you to repeat that, please. Like that the therapist is like his job or her job is to attune to the client, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
that's their
Mm.
job. We are trained, right, in a relationship, in the therapeutic relationships, like we are trained in attuning to our clients, and a
Mhm.
good therapist is able to do that, and is able to
Mhm.
notice and like feel and pick up on things that are being, even mentioned between the lines. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, paying attention, if you feel like things that are important to you that like are not being honored or are not being, addressed, that's probably a sign. It's worth bringing it up, but it's probably a
Mhm.
sign that like if it's happening continuously, that maybe something is off with the fit.
Mhm.
Checking in with your body and your nervous system is, like I said, is another important thing. Um, what else? Mm, uh, also, in some therapies, this happens where the client just kind of, um, I don't want to say vent, but like the
That's
clients
right.
vent for
Yeah.
a long, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's, when we, there are this stereotypical views of therapy, right? Where like the client just kind of vents for an hour and the therapist asks them, oh, how do you feel about that? Well, some therapies are still like that, and we don't want that, right? Like, we want
Mhm.
actual tangible changes, and it doesn't mean that it has to happen immediately, but we want to be um, seeing some kind of shifts, right?
Yeah.
And so we want to be seeing some kind of progress, sometimes it goes, healing is not linear, so sometimes, there are lower dips before higher ups, but
Yeah, that sucks, but it's true.
yes, yeah, it
Yeah.
is it is very true. It is, and it's very common. So
Yeah.
that's a normal part of the process, but we want to be seeing movement. We don't want to be just feeling like, it's kind of like every session, like I feel better in session because I'm chatting with someone, but that's it, like there's no movement beyond that.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
so I
think
think,
that's what you do really well. Can you hear me?
mhm. Yes, yes, I can
Um,
hear you.
that I wanted to say that what if you've been doing really well is also to put a healthy boundary on the cognitive, like because then in a way I think talking about it is also a little bit a distance of feeling it actually, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like you don't really process it somatically, which you then help and you specifically in our sessions obviously help to do, and to put that on the boundary. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
To be mindful
And
of time, I just want to ask, go ahead.
sure. Oh, I was just curious as from you as the client, like were there
Mhm.
any other um tips that you had
Mm.
for other people, to like help them
Yeah,
you know
honestly, yeah. I
yeah.
do think, and I have a lot of smart friends who, might have problems themselves. And for me, sometimes, even if I don't like to admit it, if I have
Mhm.
the feeling of, um, I'm smarter than my therapist, and this goes, you can say
Mhm.
whatever you want. And I don't mean intellectually, I just mean like, I've heard that before, like I know.
Right.
It doesn't help me to have generic advice here, basically.
Yeah.
When I had that sometimes in the past, and I would say I'm still usually at the point where I can just let it go, this thought, and then be open. But when I still, after the session, still have this feeling, um, it's like I don't, yeah, I think it's a sign that it's probably not the right fit, because not just, it's not just knowledge you bring actually the capability to guide you towards change. And this is what,
Mhm.
like, now that I have the difference, I do feel it. I feel in my body differently. And this was a good sign for you. Like, even though I didn't know necessarily how to tune to my nervous system, I could tell something in my body feels different, like the way I am, and not just,
Right.
yeah. Also, I don't know why it is. Like, I feel like you have magical words that just really, really touch me. Is, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's this, the connection then, but
Yeah.
the way I think it's the combination of the timing, what you say, and how you say things. I might have heard it before, but the
Mhm.
moment, the timing is just right. And I had it before when I felt this is maybe a sign too. Um, I had one, it was the same person that she mentioned something about the relationship where I felt like I feel even more ashamed of myself now that I do something wrong and I will push somebody away, because it's what her words. Like, well, if you continue doing it, you just push this person away and then it's the next one. And
Right.
I felt like I had enough self worth, not to say that it was malicious. It was just
Mhm.
unconscious, the things she said. I had enough self attunement maybe to know this is not how I should feel. Like,
Yeah.
I think, I can't, I pay for this, and I don't need somebody, and I mean, you also don't do that. I don't need somebody who, like, says yes to everything that I say. It's
Right.
quite the opposite. You do, like, you take me out of this overanalyzing, and by that you also help me process my shame and then move towards change, but not through shaming and putting more pressure. It's like another approach, and I think it's a good sign to know that. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
those are wonderful. Um,
I did have one more question. If, yeah, could you let me know if the time allows it?
Yep.
For now, because I want to have more interviews with you.
Yeah.
But we talked a lot about the hopeful, like you feel hopeful, you feel a change. Can you share maybe one story that, like, a transformation that you witnessed or accompanied, basically, that really
Mm,
touched you, or maybe even thought, yeah, like, if this healing, quote unquote, is possible, or this change, like,
mhm.
everything is possible, maybe. Or, yeah.
Yeah. That's a beautiful question. So I've been working for many years with clients, so of course, like there are many beautiful stories, really touching stories. And I don't want to go into specifics, but
Yes.
I think the stories that are really incredibly hopeful for me and incredibly touching are the stories that touch more than one person. And what I mean by that is like there is this ripple effect that happens um, that we can see as this person is healing. So, for example, I was working with this woman who she was with her previous partner for several years, and the relationship just wasn't very healthy, and we worked for I think about 2 years together, and that when she decided to leave, when she kind of finally woke up to that realization that she deserves something more, like we built up enough of her um, sense of self-worth, self-esteem, capability, agency, etc., and she made the decision to leave. The ripple effect it had on her daughter, it was really beautiful to hear about and kind of and witness, because that we continued working together, and when she would tell me about the how her young daughter is now experiencing a more safe home environment, as secure, what she's modeling, what more secure love looks like.
Mhm.
um, it's uh, it's really touching to witness that, because
Yeah.
it's kind of like, I don't remember who said this, if it was Gabor Mate or someone else. When we heal generations before us and the
Mhm.
generations that will come after us.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like when you
Mhm.
when you hear these stories, when especially when there are kids involved, or
Mhm.
future kids that are not even born yet, but this person is
Mhm.
doing that healing work. um, it's really touching. It's really, it's like we are making the world a better place, not just for
Yeah.
ourselves, but for people around us. And that's really, yeah, I think that's something that really moves me every time. It never gets old, when I work with couples that who have a lot of conflict and have kids, and as they reshape that kind of relationship that they have, and the effect it has on their kids and the household in general, and how
Mhm.
they, similarly to the upper woman, like they start to model what more secure conflict looks like, what more secure, safe love looks like. it 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 profoundly affects the children, the younger, the next generation, right? And so
Mhm.
it's kind of like we are getting to build little secure attachments, that
Yeah.
will one day have
Yeah.
their own future. So
Yeah.
it's really, yeah, it's a very sweet thing to be able to see that. And actually also, this goes kind of like backward too, because I worked with a few clients who repaired relationships with their parents. So as the parents were aging, and as we were doing some work over the years, they there was this one man who was estranged from his parents, and they had a really difficult relationship. And he reached out, and it took time and work, but they were able to get to a place where now they have regular contact, regular meet regularly. And so it's beautiful just to see those, how the healing work impacts, like this wider network of people around us. And
Mhm.
I think that's, yeah, that's just touching.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for
Yeah,
sharing. Thank you.
yeah. Yeah, of course. And like for clients, like I said again, like who don't have kids yet but are doing this work, right?
Mhm.
It's so inspiring to me, because I know that, and I say this to my clients, like you're doing this work not just for yourself, but for the family you will have one day. And even if you decide not to have kids, you're impacting the people around you. You're going to be an aunt, you're going to be an uncle, you're going to be, um, you're going to be changing, the attachment system in your family system. Like even if you're the safe aunt that your nieces and nephews can go to, you're becoming an important attachment figure in their life, and you can have a profound impact on how their attachment develops. So
Yeah.
just, it goes so far beyond just our own healing, this
Yeah.
work.
Oh, that's so beautiful. It's
Mm.
very helpful. And, it sounds like healing is contagious, as like
Exactly.
diseases are, but
Yeah.
health is too, be it
Exactly.
physical or mental. Yeah.
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 Oh,
Yeah.
thank
It's a great phrase.
you.
Healing is
Thank
contagious. Is yeah.
you. And I completely agree. Completely agree. I mean, already, I know I'm a work in progress, but I do know or see changes, and I think it is affecting also, my relationships that I have with my close
Right.
ones. And at least some people do tell me, it's like, oh yeah, I also thought about that or that. I'm like, this is amazing. So
Yeah.
this is why, the work, it's helpful, but also hearing people like you speak is very, very helpful as well. So thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And thank you for your time and your wisdom, and for me personally also for the support, obviously.
It's really an honor. Like, it's really a privilege.